Won't be recorded.
Here. Let me just jump out of here.
That's okay.
No, don't.
Where's he going? JT's leaving us now?
I was gonna go make some storage.
No, that's fine.
So what's up?
Nothing, man. What's going on with you?
How's the internet? How's the internet in KV?
Well, I had to climb up a tower and.
Did you climb a tower?
Yeah. Put some more tin foil on the antenna and just a little bit to the south. Yeah, that's what we used to have to do to get in 7 and 10 at our house.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, climb the tower and adjust the antenna.
That's how you're trying to get those scramble channels that your kids had, or that your parents had blocked from the kids.
No, we had 3, 7, and 10, and 7 and 10 was awful. Alicia
tells stories that every time that like you guys were all together or whatever, she would always catch you trying to watch like the scrambled Showtime.
Oh yeah, my dad.
If you weren't a teenage boy and didn't try to like decode the scrambled channel, you weren't doing it right.
There wasn't no coding it with my dad. Man, like once he got a satellite that was all broke open, I mean, it was just there. Like if you could figure out how to turn that thing and get to the right, whatever, because you had to go to like G2, yeah.
It's so silly though. Like, do you remember like staring intensely into the fuzz, like trying to?
What is that?
What is that?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. My gosh, what great times. Dion, what do you got for us?
No idea what you guys are talking about.
Dion has no idea because it's just all been readily available since he's been.
What do you mean? You guys just not pull it up on your phone?
I was like, wait a second.
Yeah, man.
We had like 300 channels.
0.
Dude, my grandma still has a rotary dial phone.
Oh yeah,
like literally, you roll up to my grandmother in his house. And it's funny because literally you go there and it's like going back in time. Because if you're there on like a Sunday afternoon for Sunday dinner and the phone rings, just whoever's walking by, the olive drab green phone answers it. You know what I mean? Like hello,
hello.
And it's just so funny. Like, who do you want to talk to? Is Babalu still here? Oh no, she went home. Okay, yep, bye. And it's like as if there's not a cell phone that somebody could have called.
We used to have party lines, so you'd have to pick up and make sure that your neighbors weren't on.
That's really dating yourself. Yeah. There, you're definitely the oldest on the show. Yeah,
but remember when every commercial on MTV was for
that's great though.
Was for the party lines that you could call. Remember that?
What's that?
Yeah, man.
On MTV, every commercial was like call 1-900 party.
Yeah, get that bill in the mail. See what your mom says.
Did you guys have MySpace? Were you guys MySpace guys?
Yeah, we got MySpace.
What? Okay, so let me ask my question. What was your MySpace background song?
Man, it rotated daily based on your mood, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
you changed it. I don't even know.
And you had to reorder your top friends based on who pissed you off.
I do remember reordering my top friends. I also that was more like a status thing, like trying to like it was that was like so early social media name dropping, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to drop a name here and see if I can be guilty by association. I don't know that I ever set music on mine. Knowing me at that time. It was probably like DMX, Rough Riders Anthem, if I had to guess, or like Mace Harlem World.
Probably no, because it was later 2000s.
Was it? Okay, I'm trying to think of when I set my MySpace account up.
It had, it was like for me, it was probably like Audio Slave or something. That was big at that time, late 2000s.
Audio Slave,
2007 ish.
I did a whole thing the other day. Do you know like? Some of my favorite music of all time, and I just stumbled across this, the self-titled albums. Like my favorite albums so frequently are self-titled albums. Like Metallica, the Black Album. This great album. Audio Slave, their self-titled album, I think maybe one of the greatest albums of all time. 311, their self-titled album, spectacular.
Wow, deep dive here.
Yeah, there is a deep dive. I mean, I'm not a Beatles guy necessarily, but the Beatles White Album, same thing, man. Weezer.
There's the Beatles.
Right? Yeah.
All right, start the show, dude. Roll the intro.
The Wes Buck Show.
It's uncut, it's unfiltered. This is the show of shows. This is the biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred.
Speaking his mind.
I've never had a problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way.
Exploring hot topics.
Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do.
And spreading the gospel of drag racing.
I respect the history. I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. This is the great American motorsport, drag racing.
The Wes Buck Show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Hey gang, Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine checking in. It is Wednesday, May 11th, 2022. Somehow, some way, we're 5 months into this dang thing. We've got a whale of a show for you guys today. Before we get started, I do want to briefly remind everybody, please click like, click share, help us spread the gospel of drag race and be a part of our weekly water cooler conversation here on the Drag Illustrated Facebook page and YouTube channel. And your participation makes all the difference in the world. So make sure you're clicking that like button, click and share, helping us get people involved in this conversation. We've got a lot of ground to cover here today. First and foremost, we're going to talk a little bit about the NHRA's trip to Virginia Motorsports Park coming up this weekend. We've also got the Big Dog series to talk about. Big show this past week, Thursday night at Piedmont Dragway. Got some big news in the no prep scene. A couple of very well-known what I would say like high-level, well-known, very publicized door slammer drag racers that have set their sights on the No Prep King scene. We've also got Stan Shelton, fresh off a big win at the Throwdown at T-Town. It was actually part of the Midwest Drag Racing Series makeup race when they lost the event to inclement weather back in Memphis a couple of weeks ago. Anyways, tons of stuff to talk to. Let's get right into it. JT, Mike, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the show. You guys having a good day?
Yeah.
Anything exciting happening? What's going on in your respective lives? JT got a golf tournament today?
JT said that summer is hit in KV.
It has. Like
Northeast Missouri, man.
Sweating a little bit over
This
there.
is like third year in a row we haven't had a spring. It just went from snow and 40s and yeah. And
Dude, it's been 100 degrees.
95,
it's been 100 degrees down
North Carolina
here
is the spot to
Dallas
be
Fort Worth
this
area.
Well, you guys always have nice weather.
No, we don't, man. It gets hot.
Oh shit.
It gets super hot.
Like Mike, you bought a winter jacket and gloves and scarf,
True.
stocking cap just for PRI. He's like, oh my
True.
god, this is
we don't
crazy.
have that stuff here, man. We don't wear that stuff. But then since I've learned that you basically don't go outside at PRI, all the interconnected walkways and stuff. So
you don't have to.
Yeah, you don't until someone says we can just walk.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And
Wes,
you get
you want an Uber? Oh no, we can't.
No, you
Fit
just walk.
everybody. Let's just walk.
About halfway, you're like, this is a horrible idea.
Yeah, this was a bad decision. I like to walk
My blood's
around in
pretty
Indy.
thin when we're out there, so
Yeah.
I mean, God,
You've really thinned it out for sure. Anyways, guys, let's get right into this past week. Being that you were there, Mike, I think it would be crazy not to talk a little bit about this past weekend's Big Dog Shootout. Brian Schrader took the win, a well-known competitor in that series. Took out Cam Clark, actually a former member of the Drag Illustrated, not former member, a past member of the Drag Illustrated 30 Under 30. Sounds like, by all accounts, a barn burner of an evening. We saw the Big Dog series kind of return to a bit of its former glory, right, Mike? I mean, this was something, the talk of town a few weeks ago was that, 4 cars at the season opening Big Dog event. Big time rebound for this group of guys. 9 cars showed up out there. Huge shout out to Jay Warren, the NC Pro Modder, hooking us up with some footage from the event. This, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know that drag racing can look any better. Like Pro Mod on a nitty gritty 8th mile drag strip. It's hard to beat, man. And the cars, the performance-wise, were really impressive. I think it took Brian Schrader ran, I believe, a 379 there in the final to take out Cam Clark, who posted up a really impressive 381 at 199 miles an hour. I think we could have a conversation briefly about whether or not Big Dog is too fast for its own good. But let's table that for the moment. What was the energy like? What was the atmosphere like at the event last Thursday night, Mike?
Man, it was high. I think a lot of people were eager to see that deal rebound after the 4 cars. You kind of got to hit rock bottom before you realize what, you don't miss it till it's gone. I think a lot of people realized that, hey, we got to support this deal. So it was back out there in full force. The crowd seemed strong. But it may take a couple races of these strong fields and these strong performances for everyone to regain their full confidence, but they're definitely on the way back, and it was cool. I haven't been there in probably 10 years. The place looks great. It's just an awesome little 8th Mile facility, man. I mean, it's like you're so used to going to these massive tracks, and it's just like endless pits, and you need a golf cart to get around. I mean, this deal is intimate, I guess is the best word for it. I mean, you don't have to walk far to get to anything, and the grandstands sit right on the track. You've got the betting section right here where this gentleman to the left is walking right here on the video, and that is definitely the most vocal cheering section that you've seen.
I like the reactions, man, like all the videos.
Yeah.
And I want to say that I felt like there was a considerable amount of buzz on social media around this event. And I don't know if it was just that there was some talk online or there was a little bit of controversy following that first race and the participation, the car count being down, and it had everybody stirred up. But I hope they're able to maintain this because, again, this is a great brand of drag racing, and I really want to see it be strong.
It was awesome to watch.
Oh, it's good
Jay
racing
for the live feed because I was able to watch it from home.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool, man? I mean, I was thinking about that. That was actually one of the measuring sticks that I was kind of using because watching Jay's live stream on the NC Pro Modder Facebook page, I mean, there was hundreds upon hundreds of people watching it, messaging, and I'm going, hey, there's clearly some interest in this style of drag racing. Got to shout out technology, right? I mean, how blessed are we that we're able to watch the Big Dog Shootout on a random Thursday night in North Carolina from the comfort of our own homes. I mean, Mike, I'm glad you were able to take in the sights and sounds right there live and in color.
Yeah,
but to be able to watch
awesome.
it from afar was really cool, especially considering that there's so many of these incredible little events or local and regional events all over the country. And it's crazy that modern technology allows us to kind of sneak a peek at it. But using all those metrics, the people on the social or the people watching on Facebook, all the buzz before the event, all the talk about who was going to go and who wasn't, I have to feel like you're right, Mike. They kind of maybe hit rock bottom to start the season, but man, the U-turn has started. I mean, this deal is headed in the right direction. And I think with a little bit of work on the rules and unifying this group of people, this could be back to maybe not the Power Jam days when we 50,000 to win and people coming from different parts of the country.
North-South shootout.
But maybe, because I mean, I really think this is a time where, I mean, diesel prices are crazy, right? I mean, cross-country travel has been difficult the last couple of years, right? From COVID, workforce issues. I mean, before that, it was you couldn't get into the country. And we've been talking about this here at Drag Illustrated for several years, but we just felt like we were inching upon an era of the local regional series. I mean, we've seen PDRA really thrive by just leaning into the fact that that's an East Coast deal. We've seen the Midwest Drag Racing Series spring up seemingly out of nowhere and really establish themselves as a legitimate series. But I think it's been very tied to their willingness to stay in their lane, right? And keep people relatively close to home, not drag them from coast to coast, right? And so a series like this that's got a big following and has some interest in that local area, thinking about racers like Barry Mitchell, a semifinalist here relatively recently. I think he went to the finals at the first race of the season. That thing's like right in his backyard. He's got a pro-level car. Jason Harris, another thing right down the road.
Scoop, I don't know if it's came back down yet.
Yeah, still in orbit.
I was trying to find a clip of that because it was like, okay, we got to be showing this, man. But what an incredible weekend.
He was on a hell of a run too, I think.
Yeah. And man, Cam Clark, we got to talk about Cam. I mean, going to the finals, and that thing ran 199 miles an hour. He may have had the top speed of.
I think that's the track record. Or close
at this past weekend, and fresh off the heels of knocking off Jim Halsey at the season opener at Galat in Pro Nitrous from the number 16 qualifying position. It's cool to see people like that. That's the type of race team and people that Big Dog is made for, and he's supported that deal for a long time. So cool to see him go into the finals. It's also a great place to see a bunch of nitrous cars racing too. There's a bunch of blowers out there, but man, this is old school. This reminds me as much of the old school quick 8 days as anything. And it was awesome. My kids, or the kids that we took, loved it. And it's just a different deal than going to a national event. So actually met the new owners of the track. This track is under relatively new ownership, the Senecal family. And Amanda Senecal, her father-in-law owns it. She runs it. She's the general manager. And I think she's got some enthusiasm and new ideas that she's going to bring to this deal, and just kind of learning as they go.
I'm excited, like you said, for the nitrous cars, dude. When I was watching these video clips yesterday, I'm going, more nitrous purges. Like whatever we've got to do to have more nitrous purges. And I'm glad that there's a place that these guys can go race and really not necessarily have a huge competitive advantage or anything, but be like the combination of choice, right? I mean, it's great that there's still places for a guy with, Brian Schrader's car is equipped with a 5-inch nitrous motor. Right. I mean, which is absolutely unreal. And before we continue on, we got to make mention of the fact that he drove that bitch back, man. He drove it back up the racetrack and celebrated there in the starting line with his team, Robert Hayes and company. What a cool moment. But it's moments like that. It's talking about it on this show. It's injecting it into the mainstream drag racing conversation, which is I take significant pride in. Like whenever I think about the next issue of the magazine or the next episode of this show or the next day on dragillustrated.com, I love opportunities to inject the Cam Clarks and Brian Schraders of the world into the conversation alongside Steve Torrance, alongside John Force, because as we say a lot here on the Wes Buck Show and on the pages of Drag Illustrated and dragillustrated.com, a high tide lifts all boats, man. And it's great to see these guys part of pop drag racing culture, if you will. When is the next one, right? I think aren't you talking
it's
early
the first,
June?
there's the first Thursday of every month. Yeah. So pulling up the calendar here to see what the actual exact date is.
And you've got no choice but to go at this point. Like you're married to Big Dog. You showed up once, man.
They're not going to let me. They're not going to let me off this deal now.
No, dude.
It was good to see. It was good to see
June
a bunch
2nd.
of. It was good to see a bunch of old people. Not old people. We're all getting old now. But old friends. Rick Moore was there. I don't know what Rick's official title is with this deal, but he's kind of like
I think he's like the godfather of Big Dog, right?
He really is. He's the gatekeeper, and he makes sure that this deal runs as it should and brings a lot of knowledge. And I don't know, man. I feel good when Rick Moore is on the grounds. Back in the day, any fire or crash or anything that happened, Rick Moore somehow, maybe that's why they call him Spider-Man, because he is like the first on the scene, no matter what. If you look back at a bunch of stuff from the 2000s, these quick 8 deals, ADRL stuff, Rick Moore, he's not afraid to dive in there and pull somebody out of a burning car, or be the first one down there to check on somebody. So he's just somebody that it's comforting to roll in and see a guy like that there. So they got a lot going for him. Saw Greg Burrow, AJ Ware was there. AJ Ware made an appearance for a little bit when he's not, like hanging out with Richard Petty and doing whatever else, whatever other VIP lifestyle that AJ lives on a daily basis. So it was a good deal, man. I think we're going to see a few new cars next month, and we may even see the guy that bought my dad's Camaro, Tony Hayes out of Virginia. He may have his car ready for the June 2nd event. So we'll see how that goes.
I think it's just a great thing. And these backyard kind of racing series, I think it's important to shine a light on them, because we can't kind of sleep on the fact that a traveling series is not for everyone, right? I mean, it just requires, as Mike, we've going from race to race. I mean, that was the biggest conversation that I've had with my dad lately, talking about PDRA Extreme Pro Stock, is that, for him, based out of the Midwest, Northeast Missouri, all these races along the Eastern Seaboard, that's just a big bite. And now, granted, it's kind of par for the course if you're going to dive into pro stock or whatever. And if that's what you want to race, you're probably going to have to be willing to travel, especially if you're based in the Midwest. But I think about how significant this particular series is, or this particular event is, because there aren't that many of them across the country. And I think that there should be more. I mean, down here in Texas, Extreme Raceway Park has their own monthly Pro Mod series that I would like to see reach Big Dog status, but it's going to take media. It's going to take the NC Pro Modders of the world. It's going to take people on social media. It's obviously going to take racers showing up and supporting these things. But I think our role in the media is to make sure that we don't only pay attention to the NHRA Pro Mod series or only pay attention to the PDRA series, because no matter how you look at this whole landscape, you're not a weekend warrior if you're racing PDRA Pro Nitrous, right?
Yeah, someone,
I mean, you're a
someone-
bad son of a
yeah,
bitch.
we were talking about this is a great place to see these nitrous cars racing, and I referenced it back to the Quick 8 days, and someone said, "Hey, what about Pro Nitrous?" Yeah, it's nitrous cars, but that is more akin to like a national event to me.
Absolutely.
Like that's the highest level stuff you can go. This is kind of outlaw Thursday night at a small.
And I don't mean to shortchange any of these guys' efforts, because everybody we know, like Steve Johnson, the NHRA Pro Stock Motorcycle rider and recent back-to-back race winner. I mean, he's kind of driven the bus on taking serious offense to anybody that identifies what he does, even though he's racing at a pro level, as a hobby racer or whatever. But I mean, the fact remains that there is a dramatic difference between somebody. I mean, I think we need places for people to race that don't want to have to put rods in their car every week, right? Don't want to do as Stevie Jackson would say, run the rods out of it. Don't want to have to lean on it that hard. Want to have it. I'm not saying you're going to be able to get away with leaving it in the trailer, but man, there's room for that. Not everybody. It's funny. I had this conversation yesterday with a gentleman, and we just talked about how drag racers' success is almost determined by how hard you worked. Right? Like that's, you could go out and
we love to tell,
right? I mean, you could go out and win the race. Yeah. I mean, you could show up at PDRA Pro Boost, right? And win the race. And if you won it and didn't blow everything up in the trailer and have to like put a new front end on it overnight and, overnight parts from Japan or whatever else to make it happen.
Japan.
Right? Don't you remember the Fast and Furious line? We had to overnight parts from Japan. Right, for the Supra, the orange Supra. I
thought that was like a Trump thing where he says China.
No, it was more of a shout out to the Fast and Furious fans out there. But I do think that it's good to have a place for people to go race that don't necessarily want to have to work as hard as you would have to work to go compete at a high level in Pro Nitrous or PDRA Pro Boost. So, hey, man, I'm glad we got to talk a little bit about Big Dog. I don't know if I'll get out there in June. A lot going on this summer, but I really, really, really do want to be a part of that. I mean, and Dan Ferguson in the comments right now is referencing elite top sportsmen, no doubt about it. But I do think that there's a room for people like the opportunity to race heads up, right? I mean, don't get me wrong, but you're also, I mean, if you're going to go like dabble in top sportsmen, especially in the PDRA,
that's no dabbling.
You better find out what first round loser pays, because these guys are as hard a hitters as exist in the country. So anyways,
one more thing on the Big Dog deal. I ran into Lance Stanford, Carolina No Time guru, and actually Travis Harvey as well. Lance is trying to put together a 15K to win Pro Mod race at Piedmont sometime this year. So I told him, hey, keep us posted on that deal. We'll do whatever we can to promote that.
For sure.
I'm excited. When is that one? He's talking about doing that one later in the summer?
I don't know. He didn't have a date.
Okay.
He's talked
that would
about
be
it
a fantastic, man.
Social, and he mentioned it again while I saw him there.
Okay, well, let's move on. Actually, before we do, real quick, I want to give a shout out to one of our show sponsors. I want to remind everybody, JT, will you throw up the Stroud banner there? Remind each and every one of you that our show is brought to you by our friends at Stroud Safety. Stroud Safety is known for their top quality racing safety equipment, from drag chutes and seatbelts to fire suits, gloves, and blankets, all 100% made in America. Log on to stroudsafety.com/Wes and make sure you tell them we sent you. Let's get into this, what I think happens to be, like, kind of like it or not, some of the biggest news in our space right now. The last couple of weeks, we've seen one heavy hitter after another make it known that they intend to go join the movement, join the show at Street Outlaws No Prep Kings. Marty Robertson being the most recent. I believe last week on dragillustrated.com, we broke a story that the legendary Badfish Barracuda would soon be making its No Prep Kings debut. Guys, we've seen Marty Robertson in everything from Radio vs. the World to NHRA Pro Stock. Here he is letting his intentions be known that he's headed to Street Outlaws. What's your take on this, Mike?
I think it's like we said, man, this is inevitable, especially in NPK. I think you're going to see this more, obviously, than the street show, which I think follows a different path. I think they're going to allow some of this, but it's going to be tricky. But I think that this deal has more of a chance at longevity and kind of surviving the onslaught of the big money teams or whatever you want to call them, because there is that third party force of Discovery, of Pilgrim Studios, of the fact that they're actually trying to, they have their sights set on other things than getting as many racers out there as possible, or cars that are as quick as possible. So I think they're going to allow some of this, I think, for credibility, to show that these guys can come in here and it's not just an automatic win for them, that the racers that they have are, you know, on the same level as a Marty Robertson or Odom or these other people that are coming in. But again, we saw some social media posts this past week, not really directed to anyone in particular, but it's pretty clear what they were referencing, that there should be some sort of some past history, or you have to be street in one way or another to be on NPK. So it's a little bit of a tipping point, but I have faith in Sam and everybody that runs that deal, and that's the thing. They'll keep it under control.
You know, Sam's going to be the deciding factor, you know, basically. So if he has someone that fits, you know, whatever he's trying to do on the show or whatever storyline he's wanting to do, you know, that's part of it. You know, that's part of it being a show, and that's part of why it pays so well, you know, because it is all over TV and it does do good in ratings. So, I mean, that's just part of it.
It's inevitable.
So you just got to
when you have
it,
this much
you know?
Success and exposure, and people.
Some of the guys that were bitching, you know, they kind of got thrown in too. So, you know, I don't know what they're bitching about. I guess I'd say. I mean, I understand, but you know, you weren't one of the OGs. You know, there's several people that were bitching that weren't one of the OGs either. I mean, they've been in this point too. So,
the fact of the matter is that, like, this deal's been going on a lot longer, I think, sometimes than we realize. What year was it that we put the Street Outlaws cast on the cover of Drag Illustrated?
I believe it was 2015.
Okay, so I mean, this deal's been going on for a minute now.
It might have been 2013.
And, I mean, I think that there's a couple of things. First and foremost, I don't know that you can hardly say enough about, they have created an environment there that everybody wants to be a part of, man. I mean, everybody is dying to be a part of that scene, to get involved somehow, some way. And it's kind of crazy because I see a lot of things that MPK has done. And now, granted, some of it has been on purpose. I think some of it has just organically happened. But I look at, this is the type of feeder series that is so important. The fact that they've got guys like Marty Robertson bringing cars out, and there's other names, right? I mean, we got Callie Mills in the mix. There's a bunch of people that are showing up as a part of this future Street Outlaws class, looking, you know, kind of ready. They're on deck, so to speak. And now some of them, the cream rises to the top. We've seen personality and character be a big part of this, but they've done a fantastic job of creating a place that people that are fighting to be involved in, and they're likely never going to have to worry about refilling their cup, right? I mean, we talk about it in sales a lot, that it's really important to keep your pipeline full, because you're going to have churn, right? People are going to come and people are going to go, no matter how great of a job you do. Life happens, businesses go up and down, and
crashes happen, part shortages. We're going to see a lot of challenges for these fields to be consistently filled throughout the rest of the summer. So you have to have some of it. I mean, it's a balancing act. I don't envy anyone that has to make these decisions and to balance this deal, because we've seen it. I mean, look at the radio deal. We talk about it ad nauseum about what's happened with that. And I think that's an example. I'll probably catch some heat for this, but that's what you want to avoid.
Well, yeah. And this thing's hot right now. I mean, and for something that a lot of people said, you know, oh, it won't last very long.
Right.
You know, Callie Mills is in the comments saying right now, you know, that Street Outlaws has been around longer than she's had her driver's license now.
It's kind of crazy, man. It really is kind of crazy. And I think some of the concerns, so there's multiple concerns. And I think one of the concerns is, like, going back to Marty Robertson and the Badfish, like, there's no secret that this is a high level program, right? I mean, he's renting out a track. We've talked, JT, you've mentioned several times Ryan Martin and his success being largely tied to his commitment to testing, right? And you see a team that has an NHRA background showing up over here. And I think that's what everybody's been kind of waiting to see, is how this is going to translate, right? The maintenance programs, we've talked about the things that happen away from the racetrack. I'm anxious to see how this whole thing translates. I mean, there was a couple of comments here talking about it's not as easy as it looks to go from a prepped NHRA surface or a super prepped PDRA or Midwest
I think
drag
Mike
racing
Bowman
surface.
said something about that.
Yeah,
Kevin Stevenson said Mike
not
Bowman,
automatic, right? It's not an automatic.
It's not as easy
success
as you
deal.
think.
But I mean, Aaron Van Heel, a longtime friend of the show. I mean, No Prep Kings has become the hottest thing in drag racing, period. And it's very difficult to argue. We can kind of transition here.
Well, I mean, Marty could go race anywhere he wanted to, and he's raced at a lot of different places, and this is where he's choosing to race. So what's that say about it?
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of things to take away from it, in my opinion. What I was going to point out, too, this is like the 4th or 5th or 6th iteration of Badfish. This car has had a fan following, very unique. People love this thing. We've seen
every power adder, right?
Pro Charger, twin turbos, screw blower, roots blower. The only thing that hasn't sat between the frame rails of that blue Barracuda is a nitrous engine.
Come on, Marty. Let's get a nitrous motor in that deal. Come on,
right?
Man.
Well, I mean, hey,
what are we waiting on?
That car has traveled to Saudi Arabia with us.
It has. It did.
PT slept in it on the way over to Saudi.
I did. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of amazing, man. It's kind of amazing to think of the life this thing has had. But I want to, shift gears here. Not really, but kind of continue on. How about the same thing basically happening with Manny Buginga and Fred, the famed and feared red Proline Miami-powered Pro 275 car? We heard rumblings earlier this week that, following a fairly high-profile falling out with radial tire promoter Donald Long, he's apparently turned his attention. Manny Buginga and team, Jamie Miller, Tuner, have turned their attention to no prep racing. Not totally shocked by this whole situation,
and he's
to be honest.
Before. Yeah.
Yes, because we've seen Manny compete at do this before, and we saw him throw his hat into the ring at one of these back of the track races, which I thought was very interesting. And you got a car there. We just saw it go 575 on 200 or 275 series radials. Holy cow, man. This guy's going to be a problem in my opinion.
Yeah, this is Marty got it started, but then this came out just a day or two ago. We saw this, and this would worry me as well over at NPK. And I think I wonder how much of this was conceived before the fallout with Donald a couple weeks ago.
I think, to be honest, when this car came out in 2020. News broke about this car in early 2020 that he was bringing out a new car. He'd had a strong run in X275, wanted to bring out a Pro 275 car, but everywhere the car is referenced, this particular build, it was talking about being something of a multi-purpose car, something that he wanted to be able to run Pro 275, but if he so chose, throw big tires on it, wheelie bars, and go race a no-prep race. Or No Prep Kings is mentioned specifically. So I'm not totally surprised by this. I don't think it's necessarily I don't think it's necessarily in all about the radial tire deal and the hubbub with
sure
Donald
is
Long,
good timing though.
but it is interesting timing.
It sure is good timing. Hey, we're here for this kind of stuff, man. I mean, seeing these guys jump into these new deals or have these multi-purpose cars, that's old school to me. Like having a car where you can race it, every night of the week at a different track, that's an old school mentality. And that's some more what we need. It'll be interesting to see, but like you said, a guy like Manny and this team with Jamie Miller and everybody, they're not going to just be limited to one thing. We'll see them back over. We'll see them back over in the radial deal, I'm sure.
I don't think Manny has had way too much success on radials, I would think, to forego that brand of racing entirely. But I do think he's paying attention and wants to be, I mean, like is being said in the comments, man, people want to go be a part of what everyone's talking about, right? And it's like that everybody wants what no one else has. I think it's going to be fun to watch.
Looks like Marty jumped in here in the comments, letting us know he's never going to have a nitrous combo.
No nitrous, but he says
man,
he's so
my
excited.
feelings are hurt, Marty.
He said he's excited to join these guys and gals in No Prep Kings. He has nothing but respect for every one of them and their journey to No Prep Kings. Another thing, you will never see a nitrous setup on the bad fish.
He
as long as I own
nitrous stuff. It's very interesting. I mean, he's one of those guys that we've had conversations about this before. And he's like, I just hate it. Hard on stuff. It's tons of, and it's so funny because I love when people
He's
are
not
married.
wrong. I mean, probably all the reasons he
opinion.
has are very legitimate reasons, but
what happens
it's definitely What nitrous racing is for people that love work and hate money.
What happens if the Future Stars class gets faster than the Invitational?
Well, two things. I was just getting ready to throw that out there. That 575 run was likely attached to like a low 70 eighth mile run, right? So you're talking about a car that is most assuredly capable of 360s, 370s on the regular on radials. How fast is that car going to be on big tires and bars? I mean, you're certainly a 3-second player, but the magic trick to all of this is the fact that the scoreboards are off. That is such a big part of this program, in my opinion, and the success of it is that nobody's showing their hand. And I know that the hardcore drag racing fans are really big on knowing every number. Not only do they want to see the elapsed time and speed on the scoreboard, they want to know the incrementals. They want to know all those little details.
We know that, don't we?
We do know that, right? But I'm telling you, man, there is a secret sauce in not having the clocks on. There really is. No one has to contend with that being the obvious outsider, the guy who qualified 17th, 18th, 19th. You do away with some of that ego bashing that happens there, and it's a cool thing. I'm genuinely excited. I think Manny and Jamie Miller are going to be a problem, dude. If the success Jamie Miller has had tuning cars in 2022 is any indication of what's going to happen in the future, the dude's gone back to back.
Dude's undefeated in NHRA.
Undefeated in NHRA. Shout out Chris Thorne and that whole camp. Scored his first win at the NHRA Gator Nationals in Gainesville. Backs it up at the 4 wides. A little bit of a conundrum there in the final, but nonetheless, really impressive performance from that team. And I just think Jamie will be a point. I got to point this out as well. Another guy that races a ton. Right? Not Manny necessarily. He does race a lot, but Jamie Miller seeing a lot of variables, right?
Yes.
Traveled around the world doing this stuff, tuning radial cars, tuning big tire cars, tuning on prep, tuning on well prep tracks, tuning on NHRA prep tracks, which those that know that it's not a fly paper racing surface like you see down in Valdosta or Bradenton or what's the other one I was going to reference? Orlando, these really, really, really tight tracks. It's a different deal. So Jamie Miller having all that success on a variety of different surfaces, I think he'll be a problem in the no prep scene.
And some of the tracks that Manny has ran no prep in, the actual No Prep King show, the tracks they'll be running is probably quite a bit better than some of the stuff he's ran on already. So for anybody out there that's, we get several comments here about the no fly paper, tracks. So he's used to it.
I mean, I don't think he's going to struggle. There are teams he's going to be, and hey, we didn't mention the fact, going back to Marty Robertson, he's got Jason Lee and Patrick Barnhill involved in this deal. It's not like, they've got high level people. Patrick Barnhill has all but set the world on the fire these last couple of seasons, tuning Jason Lee and Eric Gustafson's car. Really, really, really strong player. And I think having him involved with that program and all the resources they have at Elite HP and Elite Motorsports, they'll be a powerhouse out here.
We're starting to see a lot of these big names trickle down here. It's going to be interesting.
But here's a question. Are they trickling down or are they moving up? No, I know you meant nothing by that, but I'm just saying, I wonder, right? Because think about it. Marty Robertson, for so many human beings that have a racing background, NHRA Pro Stock. Mike, you and I have talked about this with your own father. The reason Charles Carpenter didn't dive into Pro Stock and became the godfather of Pro Mod, one of the best to ever do it, was because he couldn't afford to go Pro Stock racing, right? If he had his druthers, he would have went NHRA Pro Stock racing. That is the mountaintop for so many door slammer aficionados. And the fact that someone like Marty Robertson, who has done that, is choosing to do this, I think I'm not trying to poo-poo on NHRA Pro Stock. Maybe it's how it's coming across. It's not how I mean it, but it is interesting, right?
It's
and it
the
has
value
to be
proposition again. And Marty's done both of them, and it's Marty's trying a new thing here. But I think you have to look at it and look at the success that these other people have had. Look at the businesses that have been built off of this. We just went to Musie's open house a couple weeks ago. How much of that whole deal was driven off of if they were running a traditional Pro Mod class versus what they're doing
would
now?
There have been a line of people out the door?
Exactly.
I don't
look at the trickle down of that has. Look at the merchandise sales.
I wish I could find the numbers. Me and Wes wrote them down years ago of
Wes and
several different racers on their social media followers and whatnot. And what's that?
Wes and I.
Wes, whatever.
Your La Plata is showing.
Yeah, whatever.
No, I'm just messing with you.
And I had him wrote down. I thought it was over here on this board. But anyway, we wrote him down, and man, once they got involved into no prep, it skyrocketed. It 10 times as many. In months. It's just amazing how far it moves the needle.
Speaking of merchandise sales specifically, I've have some insider knowledge here, and I'll share it with you because I can't name names because it's a little bit interesting. But I talked to a very prominent race-winning NHRA Pro Stock driver, and he sold about $25,000 worth of T-shirts last season in NHRA competition. Right? I spoke to another top flight no prep King star who told me they sold $25,000 worth of T-shirts in a day. Right. And that is a real hard hitting stat. And I'm not saying it is the ultimate indicator of what's hot and what's not, but it tells a story for sure.
Yeah. That's something that we've talked about a lot, where that's been almost lost. The fact that really even guys like Don Perdome, Tom McEwen, Force, going kind of match racing, going to these backwoods outlaw tracks in the middle of the week or whatever, and selling the place out and selling out of shirts. The early day, I know all the early Pro Mod guys lived off T-shirt sales, and that's back with NPK. I mean, that alone, merchandise sales, and what's that do for your brand to just have? If you sold $25,000 of shirts in a day, how many shirts is that are walking around now in Lowe's and going to restaurants around your town advertising your brand? It's a huge, huge, powerful deal. And that's something that has just, I think everyone's kind of like, feels like they've given up on or have just relegated as a, it is what it is type of situation. And that to me is an exciting thing that NBK's brought back. It definitely has that match race, 70s, 80s, funny car, Pro Mod, match race type feel to it.
I'm telling you, man, sometimes to go forward, you have to go backwards. Yeah. And No Prep Kings is going backwards. I mean, no matter how you cut it, no matter how great of a job they've done on so many things, it is drag racing at its bare bones. This is how it used to be. And I've heard this multiple times. Pat Musey, that's one of his go-tos, is this reminds me of the early days of drag racing. This reminds me of way back when. And I think that there's maybe something for the whole sport to learn from that, right? I mean, NHRA, we were just talking last week about these cars going almost 340 miles an hour. Nobody wants to do anything to slow them down, right? I mean, everybody like, let it run wild and whatever, and it's like, well, man, maybe we need to hit rewind on the old tape deck for like a half hour. Just hold that button down.
They tried to pull the prep back.
Pull this thing back.
And then everybody just threw a complete fit, didn't they?
Man, I think it's for whatever reason. I feel like a lot of sports and a lot of mainstream things, we see like fashion trends come back around, right? Like bell bottoms are back or whatever. You know what I mean?
My jeans.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm serious.
It's like stuff comes back already, around, man. And it's okay to look to the past or back things up to get a fresh start or to move forward, whatever it is. But it's like, we're not allowed to do that in drag racing. It's always got to keep this relentless pace forward, where there's a lot of things that we've left in the past that worked and that I feel like could work again. And we're seeing some of that.
I tend to agree that I see a lot of old school elements in No Prep Kings that I think they're leaning into all the things that make our sport great, right? And it feels like there are many instances. I mean, matter of fact, one of them is there was a bunch of hubbub over the offseason this last year that NHRA was going to make a hard push to reduce the amount of people on the starting line. They didn't like the way it looked, or they felt it wasn't representative of their brand, and they wanted it to look more professional and stuff. And I'm like, well, man, think about what gets played on ESPN. The kids storming the field. You know what I mean? Right. Like as soon as a college football team wins a game, like the first thing that everybody does is run onto the field. And I understand that it's dangerous and people get hurt and blah, blah. But I mean, those are the emotion-driven, passion-driven moments that get people excited. We've talked about it. You see someone crying, on the side of the road, and it's going to tug at your heartstrings, right? Emotions move the needle. And if you see a whole bunch of people rabid and going crazy and so excited about what's happening on in front of them and holding their cameras up, you can't help but be excited or at least intrigued, right? It's piqued your curiosity, and we need more moments like that. And, NHRA, and it's not the NHRA, it's just that circle of racers, because it's probably more the crew chief's fault that the burnouts have gotten so short, right? And everything's being done, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's interesting, right?
It is. It is. I also want to say Kevin Stevenson does a great job with his page on keeping everybody up on the No Prep Kings happenings and news. And that's at Street Outlaws _MPK spoilers. But that's where I get a lot of my information there.
Oh, dude, Kevin Stevenson's like,
Yeah,
got
Kevin
his
makes
ear
us
to the
look
ground.
He does.
Yeah,
I
thank
got
God.
to go there and like look around.
Oh, it's crazy. Erica Enders in the comments here. Go look at my cover photo. They haven't cut Team Elite numbers down. They certainly haven't. And I think it's important, man. I think that's some of the coolest
What's she
stuff.
talking about there?
She's talking about all the people behind that red Camaro when she goes up to the starting line.
Oh,
right?
okay.
And there's a sea of people that are behind those cars. And I think that stuff, man, it's important. It's important on a multitude of levels. I don't know that there's anything that's going to do more for your sponsor relations than getting like the CEO or the VP of sales or whatever down on the starting line with the team. Like that's
one of the most
big deal
badass
for those
pictures we
people.
have from the Door Slammer Nationals. And I think one of Erica's favorite photos is it's just a sea of people standing behind the car. The car almost looks like it's not even full size or whatever.
That is a cool shot.
Standing behind it. We heard that so much from those pro stock teams of how they envied racing in an environment like that, where there's so many people on the starting line and there's this energy, and getting to do that at our race was something special. So, there's a balance, but there's definitely something to it. People want it.
I agree 100%, man. And before we switch gears and move into almost hour 2 of the show, I want to remind everybody how much we appreciate you guys being a part of this. Please click like, click share, help us spread the gospel of drag racing, bring more people to this conversation. We truly believe we're doing important work here by discussing our sport, reacting to the news, offering our insight and opinion, right, wrong, or indifferent, living with the consequences, because we want people talking about drag racing. It's easy to be excited on Friday at the races. Hell, it's easy to be excited on Saturday and Sunday when things are wrapping up. But it's these Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays that we got to keep the conversation going. And this is how we do it. So thank you guys so much for being a part of this. Remember to thank our sponsors: Redline Synthetic Oils, Holly Performance Parts, Stroud Safety, Sand Haulers of America. The list goes on. Who else am I thinking? Who else am I missing? Flow Racing, of course, our partners at Flow Racing. Support the companies that support us, and please click like, click subscribe, click share, help us spread the gospel of drag racing. Guys, headed into hour 2 here on the Wes Buck Show. We're going to be joined in just a few moments by the one and only Stan Shelton, fresh off a big win at the Midwest Drag Racing Series event in Tulsa. He actually won the makeup event from the rain-delayed race in Memphis, Tennessee a couple of weeks ago, but a really cool deal, and I'm excited to talk to Stan. Before we do, though, to kind of bookend the No Prep Kings comment and finish this conversation, just some closing notes from you guys. I'd like to go around the room here. By all accounts, do we agree that this is a good thing, right? I mean, this is a good thing to see these guys. And the pushback that we've seen from some of the OG Street Outlaw guys, I'm okay with it. I think that they're within their rights.
Defend your turf, right?
Defend their turf. But I think that's I've been surprised, man. This John Odom that showed up with the new Nissan GTR. I mean, there's some real movement, and I think we need to get behind it and support it, rather than this is where drag racing, our cliquey nature, this community is kind of penchant for segmenting itself, right?
This is even worse because now you're fighting for TV time as well.
Right.
So
yeah, the stakes are higher.
Yeah.
I mean, that real estate over there in NPK is definitely very valuable. So I understand them defending their turf, but you're going to have this, man. You're going to have it as this grows. As I've said, I have more faith that they will regulate that deal and control it better than a typical outlaw heads up door slammer drag racing situation, where we see it, quickly become the point of no return very, very quickly. So it'll be interesting, and I don't think we're going to see a ton of it. I don't think we're going to see a huge influx of people. I think it's going to be sort of experimental, a few at a time.
Yeah, and that's probably the best thing, because if there were 35 of them all at once, but to see a few fresh faces, be a part of
That'd
that.
be cool too, though. That'd be cool.
JT just like he wants carnage or something.
I do.
He wants to see the whole deal turned upside down.
Well, here's what I'm excited about is seeing the future Street Outlaws deal not be like the also rans. And when you start getting Marty Robertson over there and Callie Mills, I mean, it's already packed full of like legit cars, but when you get more and more name value, I think it lessen the sting for some of these other people who are resistant. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've heard a lot of high level racers, championship level racers say, hey, I don't want to go start I want to be in the Invitational. I ain't going to go pay my dues over there. I think by seeing these other folks be willing to go pay their dues and go be willing to be part of the show and to be a supporting cast member as compared to a star of the show, that is going to probably entice some more people to do it, in my opinion, right? Yeah. Because they don't want to be the only one. They don't want to be the first one. I think Paige Coughlin deserves some credit in this conversation, because I was proud of her being willing, despite the JEGS, a massive JEGS organization behind her. I'm sure there was a lot of people that expected her to throw her weight around, or the yellow and black to throw their weight around and get her a slot in the Invitational. But she came right out in that initial release that, hey, we're going to go run the Future Street Outlaws. We're going to kind of get in where we fit in and see what happens. She started it, and now we're seeing more and more people willing to play ball, go throw their hat in the ring and see what happens, man. So I'm genuinely excited about it.
I am too.
Me too. All right, guys, let's head into this second hour and bring the one and only Stan Shelton on here. Mike or JT, are you guys going to bring him on?
Yeah.
Okay.
There he is.
There he is.
There he is,
man. What's going on, Stan? Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. First and foremost, man, huge congratulations. What a deal. I mean, you're a relative fresh face here in the Pro Mod world, but you already found your way to the winner's circle. Congratulations.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. It's been a long road for us. We started this journey about 3 years ago, and Mike Kopchak started helping us. Russell Miller helped us at Darlington. We baby steps to get where we're at today. And definitely, man, this is a deep pool. I like the article you had this week where like 150 Pro Mods have been running down in the last several, events and stuff. And there's no better competition than this. Just because you buy a car and you buy the parts, man, it means nothing. You know what? I mean, it is a steep hill to climb, and we're excited about this past weekend hanging out with my new best friend. That was really exciting for us this weekend, and to make that journey out to Tulsa. Keith Haney's doing a fantastic job with the Midwest Series. We like the fact that the Pro Mod racers controlling some of these series. Tommy Franklin's PDRA, Keith Haney's running Pro Mod in Midwest, and we're just excited. Those guys I don't know how to explain the depth of the class. I mean, there is no, we went out and we struggled a little bit off the trailer in Tulsa. Petty got us straightened out, and we went through eliminations and did well. But then, that was the Memphis race. So, I mean, we just won the Memphis race at like 2 o'clock. So we reset ourselves to go out for the Tulsa race at 4 o'clock, and Ronnie Hall puts us on the trailer. You know what? And that's just how steep and how great the competition is. We're excited about being a part of it. We love competition. We love the camaraderie, and what we're seeing about the class is everybody's pulling the rope. Everybody's pushing it forward.
I tend to agree, man. Do you think how important, one of the cool things that I feel like we've seen from your particular operation is your willingness to go a variety of places, right? Go to the Midwest Drag Racing Series event, go to a PDRA race, go to a big outlaw event, or show up at the NHRA, newly renamed Fuel Tech NHRA Pro Mod Drag Racing series presented by D-Wagon. How much of a motivator is that for you as a team owner and a racer to go into a new endeavor? And I would like to touch on your tractor pulling background here momentarily, but how important was it to you to have all those opportunities?
Well, we felt like it was a necessity because we lack the knowledge. We understand the motor from the tractor pulling background. We can rebuild the motor and put it back together, no issue, but everything from the firewall back on a Pro Mod is, it's something else. So we're we're trying to run as many events as we can, so we can get the knowledge of the class, whether we're running 8 mile, whether we're running a quarter mile, that's what we're trying to do, is get as much knowledge as we can.
Tell me real quick, I would like to, I mean, obviously talk about the big win, but seeing you at the NHRA Pro Mod national event here a few weeks ago out in Charlotte, I believe that was your first experience in the NHRA world. Could you kind of take us through that and what that experience was like, and did you ever think you'd see yourself out there running on the same track that John Force is out there and Ron Capps and all these guys? Tony Stewart is walking around. Was that especially exciting for you?
That was very exciting for us. We always been drag racing fans, even though we're trucking tractor pull. We'd go to Charlotte, watch the races, and think about maybe that could be us one day out there doing the same thing. And that was a very surreal situation for us to be able to go out there and do that. And I feel like in NHRA, on the outsider looking in, everybody's kind of riding John Force's coattails to a certain extent. But I went to a meeting of pro mods out there, and we were there that week, and you got a lot of it was fantastic. The meeting was tremendous. You got a whole lot of business individuals or pro mod guys, or you could be a huge amount of egos in that room, but all those egos turned into one. And with this situation they got moving forward with Fuel Tech behind that, Doug Winters has got D-Wagon coming on. They got a lot of, I think we're at coming forward at a fantastic time, because they got a tremendous amount of momentum. You got all these guys pulling. In that one room, everybody was together. Everyone was united. And you would think there'd be so many different egos in there that everybody's thinking about themselves. Of course, we're all going to think about ourselves when we get to the starting line, but in that meeting, everybody's about moving Pro Mod forward, and I think it's got a lot of momentum right now.
I honestly think that's what it takes. Having a group of people that are all swimming in the same direction and share a common vision or a common goal, it will no doubt make a difference and change the trajectory that the NHRA Pro Mod series has been on the last few years. I think there was a lot of us that were genuinely concerned that, does this deal have much runway left? What's going to happen next? And it has been the effort of this incredible group of people that has got this deal headed in the right direction. I'm excited about it as well. And it's cool, after that 4-wide experience, Stan, do you feel like you may be enticed to do a little bit more NHRA racing, or what's your plans for the future?
We'd like to. We tried to. It took a good bit to convert that car to an NHRA trim. To start with, we were really excited about it. They gave us an opportunity to use our screw block and to make some changes to the car to where we could compete. In our back door in Charlotte. We're going to go to Virginia this weekend. We hope the weather gets. We understand we got weather situations anywhere you go, but we're going to go to Virginia. Maybe go to Norwalk. Just trying to get our feet wet. We like there's professionalism in all categories, Midwest, PDRA, NHRA, but then, NHRA does bring a certain platform that we like about how they run their schedule and stuff like that we'd like to do a little bit more of that. But very exciting run quarter mile. Man, it's, I'm OCD or ACD or whatever you want to call it. And whether I keep my attention span for 3.5 seconds, but for 6 seconds, boys, getting it out there, I'm telling you.
Can you compare and contrast a little bit for us? Because this is something like, I grew up in an auto repair shop, and a lot of my dad's in a farming community in Northeast Missouri, and a lot of my dad's customers were farmers that would dabble in truck and tractor pulling, right? Yeah. And I would always they'd build me, my dad would build them a big block Chevy or something that was, sometimes fairly radical stuff, but also like cast-headed, cast intake stuff for some of the really limited truck categories. But I'm just curious, I always scratched my head about how they were okay with making one pull, right? They would go to an event. I remember the handful of times I went, and we would go to help someone and we'd make one pull. And if you were going to make a couple licks, if you're going to have a couple of shots at it, it was because you entered multiple classes. Is there any sort of like additional value to the drag racing experience just because you get to run your stuff a lot more?
There certainly is. When we would have drag racing friends come to the tractor pulls with us, they were like, dude, you're only making one pass tonight? You know what? And I'm like, yeah, let's run a pull off, and that's where so critical in pulling, you got to, all your variables, whether it's 10 variables, track condition, weight, horsepower, atmospheric condition, you got to get it right in one shot. Where drag racing is, we probably love qualifying day as a family as much as we do anything, because we go back up there 4 times or 3 times. You're going up there, everybody's getting excited, going to the line, making a pass, come back, working on the car, redo it again, go back up there again. So that excitement definitely in drag racing is enticing for us. We still love pulling, and there's a tremendous thrill for us in pulling. But we do see how our drag racing friends, where they're coming from now. And they used to say, man, you're just making one pass, and we get to make a lot of them in drag racing. And it is very exciting.
I like things about, there are certain parts of the truck and tractor pulling world that I think are interesting. The fact that the truck or tractor goes out there all by its lonesome. I do think that there's something cool about that. We experienced that a little bit at our World Series of Pro Mod back in 2017, the first year we did that event out on Thunder Mountain in Bandimere, Colorado, or Bandimere Speedway in Denver, Colorado. We ran all of our test passes, our shakedowns is what we called them, as singles, because as many know, that race was run without the scoreboards on, so no one knew what anybody was running, and I couldn't let cars run side by side, right, and gauge how they were running or what have you. So we made everybody run singles, and at first we were like, oh, is this going to detract from our show? But where I really landed at on that particular situation was, man, you get to hear the car, you get to hear it shift gears, you get to get the turbo car squall on the tires down through there. And I see that, right, in truck and tractor pulling, where you get to go out there by yourself and be the center of attention. Is that something that, I mean, is that a special, I can't imagine that experience, especially at some of those big tractor pulling events where there's people everywhere and it's just you out there. Yeah,
tractor pulling draws a tremendous crowd everywhere we go, really. The demographic market's really the same for drag racing. They're the same type of people. It's just a matter of the truck and tractor pull is more contained, I guess you would say. You know, we're on a 300-foot track where you really get to see the start and the finish, where you can at a drag race if you're sitting toward the end. But it's just more of a contained environment right there, so you get more of the feel of it. I like what you were talking about that particular drag race, because you know in Pro Mod you got the nitrous cars, screw cars, Pro Charger cars, turbo cars, so you could hear that turbo car probably spooling up a whole lot better and jumping on the line a little bit versus you could if it was sitting there running beside a screw blower or something. But same aspects, again, same demographic markets, same people. When we go to tractor pulls, people are asking about us, our Pro Mod drag racing. And when we go to drag races, people are coming by and say, hey man, we love watching tractor pulls. So we're hopefully getting both and bringing them two together.
Man, I was just thinking, like, it'd be cool to just see that stuff. How different is the maintenance program? I can't imagine the wear and tear, the load those truck and tractor pulls, those tractors that you run, the unlimited division with, what, 36 blown Hemis out front?
Well, they're most time in tractor pulling, we're trying to match. We don't want to work on the motors, just like we don't want to work on if we have to in Pro Mod. But we're trying to match the power to the gear ratio. In our class, we're running 871s, 4 with 871s. An 871 blower won't make but so much compression down below to push bearings out and do stuff like that. Of course, you can lean the motor down and really you can hurt it, but it's not what we're about. We're about consistency in the truck and tractor pulling. We do routine maintenance every day, running valves, same things we do between rounds and drag racing. It's just a matter of drag racing. You know, we're going to use a set of rods, 20 or 25 passes in 2 weekends in drag racing. And that's going to last us all year in pulling, you know. So especially with the part supply issues that we all have, we're all dealing with pistons, rods, valves, seem like the tougher things to get for everybody. Everybody's trying to make and manage their parts as best they can.
Stan, being new to drag racing and kind of diving in with Pro Mod here, I've noticed that on the tree, you've just been mowing down the tree everywhere you've been in 2 different cars. What do you attribute that to? Is any of that from, your decades of tractor pull experience, or what have you been doing to sort of get yourself ready on the tree?
Well, I try to do my own homework. I've got a practice tree, and I try to sit in the car and get that aspect and get yourself in that zone. And have some good friends. John Strickland, when I first got into the sport, he gave me some pointers about how you can slow yourself down and do different things by how you hold your hand or if you grip the wheel and do little things, stuff you don't think about, especially me coming into the sport. I'm like, man, you got to come off the button. But a lot of little tricks a lot of guys do. We try to keep it pretty simple, in the car, but we just been real fortunate. I think what's helped me most recently is that we have Steve Petty has done a fantastic job of getting our car where it's making laps down the track on a consistent basis. And I think anytime a driver gets more comfortable and relaxed and knowing his car is probably going to go down the track,
really that helps a lot.
It's helped me tremendously.
You see that a bunch. Like if you see a driver that has developed a confidence in his mount, right? The horse underneath him. When you trust that thing and you've got like what's the word? A synergistic relationship, like you know what it's going to do, you know the changes that you made, you've got a team that is meticulous and pays attention to detail, you can go up there and focus on doing your job and not just holding on for dear life or hoping something good happens and nothing bad happens. We, our editor-in-chief here at Drag Illustrated Magazine, Nate Van Wagenen, is in our little private chat green room here, and he's asking, are you going to participate with your truck and tractor, or with your tractor pulling team in the big event that Norwalk is hosting this summer?
We are, actually. Yep. The Bader family has come on board. They were at our banquet, and we're excited about that. I think it's going to be the last, the third weekend in July. They're having a tremendous event up there, so we'll be there with our 2 multi-engine tractors and our 3 mini rods. Certainly will. Well,
that's cool, man. I'm glad to hear it.
Man, these guys, the Shelton family stays busy.
I was going to say,
deal, Stan's operation, meeting all these guys, it's a family deal, and I think Stan put it very well, that how else can you get his 3, basically grown children, they're in their 20s, and his wife to hang out with him in a box for a weekend and do family stuff together. It's just kind of an old school deal. As far as what you guys are doing, going out there and having fun. So I think, you guys, it seems like a lot of work. I know you guys stay busy, but it's like, it's one of the last few times that before everyone's grown and have married and have kids and all this stuff, that you're able to do this stuff with them.
Absolutely. Just like you and your dad, Mike, we had a great conversation when you came down to my shop, and it was a good time, good visit. It's all about a family for us. The Pro Mod car and the pulling vehicles is a reason for us all to be driven together. Luckily, the kids grew up interested in something motorsports. Married a wife that's very understanding, and she knew that it was something we were going to do as a family, and it kept our family together. And that's what's been the crucial thing. That Pro Mod car is our ticket for fun together, as well as the truck and tractors are as well. So we don't take it for granted. It takes a lot of hard work. We've got a lot of other people just outside of family that help us do this, and without them, we wouldn't be able to do it. We might have grown too big, just a little bit in pulling there for a little while, to be able to handle 2 haulers and do stuff like that. So we depend on family and friends to come go with us, and we enjoy that part of it.
Has there been anything about the drag racing experience or the Pro Mod experience that has surprised you? Like coming from the pulling background? No.
Not really, because again, I think all the people are cut out of the same cloth.
I agree. Yeah.
They all like horsepower. They all like loud, competition, and great camaraderie, just like in drag racing or Pro Mod. You get Pro Mod class. I mean, you get I kind of look at it as like, if you look at a schoolyard, the Pro Mod guys are probably all the kids that you probably didn't want to mess with. You know what? I mean, you get Stevie Jackson,
the bullies,
J.R. Gray, and Lyle Barnett. They're gonna talk you to death. They're gonna wear you out, telling you what they're gonna do to you. You know, and they probably will 50% of the time. And then you get the guys like Jose and some of the other guys in that class on the NHRA side that are gonna be quiet and spoken, but they're gonna take your head off. You know, when they get a chance. So that part of it, but yet everybody's got their own way, but everybody, when you come to competition, if you need a part, they're going to give it to you. You know what? I don't think anybody wants to get beat because you got the part in the trailer and the other guy doesn't have it. We certainly don't want to. We want everybody to come up there. We want to race. You know what? And that's what we're all about.
Well, speaking of the NHRA deal, Stan, we've got it queued up here, and I know we'll have a little fun talking about what happened at the 4-wide nationals. We talked to Lyle last week about this, and I think it'll be interesting to get your perspective. And you even sent me a photo that we've got here that I think that our audience will enjoy having you explain. JT, can we get that video pulled up here? Well, actually, first, here's the photo. It's it's showing your team's strategy for letting you know which of the 4 lights on the tree to look at for that round, which has got to be among the most difficult things to change round after round, depending on what lane you're in.
Well, that's the last sticker I had in my car before we went to the finals. And we were out there, and NHRA sent a little memo and said, "Hey, we're gonna have a seminar on Thursday evening for all drivers to come to the starting line and talk about how you race the 4-wides. You know, and I'm like, okay, you know, I'm gonna go up there for that and see that. And man, there was a tremendous lot of drivers up there. And Alan Reinhart was running the meeting, and he's like, guys, he said, it's pretty simple. You know, you got four lanes, you got 4 bulbs, you know, and they go straight across. He said, but I promise you, you're used to, if you're running the right lane against somebody and somebody's in the left, your mind wants you to think that your bulb's on your side. Or whether you're in the left lane and you're running somebody, your mind wants you to think your bulb's on the left side. And everybody kind of got a perspective of it. But one guy come up and mentioned, he said, here's what Camry Caruso did. Camry Caruso put a sticker on her dashboard, and after every round had 4 circles on it, and the crew would mark down what light bulb was hers. I'm like, man, that just struck me. And I said, that is perfect. And that's what we're going to do. We go back to the pits. Spencer every round puts that tape on there, tells me what one is mine. I had no issues. Right before I roll in the water box or go to the stage in, I look at my dashboard and I know which one was mine. No issues until the pressure rose up like it did. You know, we get in that finals and we're excited about. I like a good show. I mean, you got all 4 power riders. You got turbo. You got screw car. You got nitrous. You got pro charger. I mean, everybody's lined up in there. You got 2 Fords and 2 Chevrolets going at it. And I'm excited. And I just forgot to look at my dash, you know, and I got up in there and got excited. Of course, you know, RNU, Thorne and Lyle were super fast on the tree. And Ricky had already gave me several lessons at Darlington on the tree. so I get all pumped up. And just as soon as I bumped in, my number 2 bulb turned on the top and it just grabbed me. It was on my side of the tree. It grabbed me and I didn't see anything else. And one downfall of our group is my radio communication isn't great in my car when I'm close to them for some reason or other. We're going to work on that, of course. And my kids kind of tell me, say, Dad, you passed the course for the seminar, but you failed the exam.
But do you I mean, it's your first, that was your first NHRA race. You're out there with an unproven combination. I mean, I think we have to talk about that too, that you were the first one to roll out there with the screw blown combination and maybe kick that door wide open for other teams to now try that. So you're out there. I mean, that's something you got to remember. Not only it's first NHRA race, quarter mile, screw blown, different car. You got 2 different cars wide. It's right? 4 wide at your home race in the finals.
Yeah,
I think that we could give you a pass for that situation.
We're going to go ahead and give you an A for effort. An A for effort, Stan, because I think Mike's right that you couldn't ask for a more high pressure, volatile situation. And really, you looked real good all weekend long. Like there was a lot of us standing back going, holy hell, is this guy going to show up with a new combination and win this deal? Because I think you may have had the car to beat.
Well, we worked awful hard at it. We took that car to Darlington a couple of weeks before that and never got past 100 foot. And really, you know, Steve Petty, I always liked Steve and Lee White. They worked together on the situation. Lee's got more background in screw blowers and Petty's calling the shots, but I always look at Petty like a mad scientist. He goes in there and he's going to bake a cake. You know, he puts a little bit of this, a little bit of that in there, and he gets to baking his cake and comes out. And we struggled that first day we went. When we went back, he'd worked real hard, and we started getting back down the track at Darlington. So we did come in there feeling like we could get down the track. And then, so that just gave us some momentum. Once we got the car down the track, they started making some changes. We got more comfortable with the car. The car was going straight. So it was, I was more disappointed that the whole buildup of the class, it was the best race of the weekend was going to be right then, I thought, and I turned it into a dumpster fire because I rolled through the beams. And so I just wanted it to be a fair race. I know it's hard on, it's hard on Lyle's car, turbo car, sitting there trying to spool up and get on the 2-step, and it's rough on their converter. So all that's really what worried me more than anything is I killed a good momentum for the class, but I'm sure we'll pick it back up.
I surely think you will. It feels like the class is poised kind of get back on. It's like maybe the wheels were wobbling a little bit, but this thing is rolling right along here. And it's, I think your participation, there was several, we've seen Tyler Miller, right? Speaking of Darlington, right? Russell Miller's son, Tyler, has shown up. There's some fresh faces. Lyle's continuing to fight the good fight. And I'd love to see the NHRA Pro Mod series really return to its former glory and be this, because it drives the bus. We've talked about it ad nauseum, but it really does drive the bus for a lot of door slammer categories, because when you have that kind of, what do you want to call it, the premier deal to go be a part of, it keeps everything a flagship type of program. It keeps all these sanctions and series rocking and rolling. It's what contributes to 150 plus cars competing so far this year. And I think we got to have all these options. We got to have places to race. I mean, I'm sure there's we could get too far, right? There could be too many options. We've seen that be a problem in the past, but the inventory of cars in Pro Mod looks strong right now. And we're really excited to see you be a part of this deal. What's the rest of 2022 look like for Stan Shelton and company?
Well, we're going to try to go to Virginia this weekend, and then we're going to take the 67 back out to the Midwest race in St. Louis, and then we're looking at possibly going to the Norwalk race and for NHRA at the end of June, and then we'll be fully into tractor pulling in July and August, and then maybe hopefully make Indy with NHRA. And then get some more Midwest races and maybe hit a few more those toward the end of the year.
Man, it's very exciting. We look forward to seeing you. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your afternoon to join us, brother. It's as soon as Mike introduced you to me at ZMAX, he looked at me. He's like, "We got to get him on the show, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, we got to get this guy on the show. He's well spoken. He'll chat with us and be candid and honest. So thank you so much for coming on here and chatting with us a little bit."
Honor to be on you guys' show. Thank y'all so much. Y'all are pushing this. You guys are top drawer. Y'all are the ones pushing this sport forward. We thank you so much.
We thank you, man. We couldn't do any of it if it weren't for guys like you spending money and spinning tires. So thanks, brother. We appreciate it. Talk soon, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stan.
What a deal,
man,
right? I'm fascinated by the truck and tractor pulling world. I really am. Like
you always have been.
I always have been. I used to say that if I could have any dealer driver in the world, it would be a super stock pulling tractor.
Yeah, you did. I will say he said that for a while.
Yeah, I'm a big
Stan,
fan.
I think that's an example. We talked to another guy, Mike Thielen, that runs the blown helicopter. Get your helicopter license.
Glacier Aviation.
Yep, Glacier Aviation car. Some really like high end, well spoken, great personality guys that we're seeing come into Pro Mod, and that's what we need. That's what's healthy. I think I saw some chat earlier in the comments about what we were saying about MPK being a members only club and they won't let anybody in. NHRA Pro Mod, when it was strongest, it was essentially a members only club.
Yep.
And not everyone
That's
could get in. And there's something to be said for that type of format. And I'm hoping to see that segment of racing regain that. I don't want to say status, but like I said, that class was strongest whenever it was sought after. As soon as someone crashed or couldn't make a race or bailed or whatever, they had 10 people knocking down the door to get in. That's what we need. We need demand and we need scarcity for some of these classes. And Stan, I think racing multiple combinations in multiple series, like you said, not being afraid, not really being pigeonholed to running PDRA only or Midwest only or NHRA. He's going to do the whole. He's going to do a little bit of everything.
Builder, like if I'm Rick Jones, Jerry Bickle, Larry Jeffers, all these guys, right, that build race cars. There's several. How can you not be excited about this particular brand of racing, right? I mean, there's just so many customers. There's so much opportunity for these guys. And it's just a great thing for the sport of drag racing. I look around and there's nothing else like this. There's no other opportunity to build a car that you can race in this many different places. At the big outlaw independent events, you can go down there and be a part of the Snowbird Outlaw Nationals. You can go down and be part of the World Street Nationals. You could take big tires and bars off, put radials on it, and go down and be a part of Lights Out. You know what I mean? Go be part of No Mercy or the Sweet 16. They're a real multi-purpose racing vehicle, and it's no wonder to me that it's as popular as it is. But I think you make a very, very valid point, Mike, that this is what the NHRA series specifically has really been lacking the last few years, is when they had that limited inventory, it made all the difference in the world. It was a club. It was, and you're going to have, that's a double-edged sword. I mean, one of my first original business mentors, Danny Rowe, used to always tell me it's leading edge or bleeding edge, right? Because the best part about the NHRA Pro Mod series was that it was a good old boys club, and you had to be somebody, or you had to know somebody, or you had to be willing to stroke a check to get involved. But it was also the first thing people like to bag on and be mad about, is like, well, I tried to get in, but I didn't have a big enough sponsor to get a spot. And it's like, I think you have to kind of roll into that deal knowing you're going to have some detractors. There's going to be someone left out in the cold. But without someone left out in the cold, it's hard to generate that interest, and it's hard to get people excited about it because they think anybody can do it, you know? And it's weird how it works.
Everyone wants
what no one else has, man.
It's human nature, man.
It really is. I mean,
well, then you don't want to not show up and lose your spot too. You know, if that's someone else, then they're like, oh shit, they did good, and you know.
No, I mean, they've created like it.
Well, it creates that. Are you going to sit at home that weekend?
No.
Like there may be another series, like to your point, JT, where it's like, I can skip this one. But if you skip that NHRA race when you have worked for years to get the grade points or the sponsorship or whatever to get in there, you're not going to miss a race unless something catastrophic happens. And there's big power in that too.
I think that's where it's headed, man. And there's nothing wrong with a club. I mean, there's really not. I mean, I get it. And there are.
I like clubs.
I like clubs too.
I like clubs.
You know what I mean, man? And
it's about happy hour.
It is just about happy hour. Speaking of happy hour, a little bit of a happy hour for the NHRA Pro Mod series to kind of continue that conversation. News broke earlier this week that the D-Wagon NHRA Pro Mod Shootout would be going down August 18th through 21st, Brainerd, Minnesota, during the Lucas Oil
shout out
NHRA
to Craig Kruckberg. And if he's sponsoring a shootout at the zoo in Brainerd, JT, we might need to go.
I've been wanting to go to the zoo. Yeah.
He's a fun guy.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
Well, I'm telling you what, that's his local race, right? So the D-Wagon, Steinar, that brand, their local races there in Minnesota. We know about, I mean, it's no secret, the energy and enthusiasm that exists at Brainerd in the zoo. I mean, this is a unique brand of race fan. Pro Mod was extremely well received. I mean, I'm sure they've run like local shootouts and stuff like that, but this was the first time the NHRA Pro Mod series had ever been up to Brainerd, Minnesota. All the racers we talked to, despite the fact they only had like 10 or 12 cars, everybody we talked to, from Stevie Jackson to the race winner, Jose Gonzalez, Brandon Snyder, Justin Bond, everybody involved, they all came back saying, man, that was one of the funnest races I've ever been to. I'm so glad I went. And I think by putting this $25,000 D-Wagon Pro Mod Shootout together, we'll see those numbers more representative of what we typically see across the country, right?
Oh, yeah.
This is I'd like to think.
We were unsure if they were going to return to Brainerd when the schedule came out. There was some scuttle about that. But like you said, I think that this really incentivizes people to go to that, even if it's off the beaten path for some of these teams.
It's smart, man. You got to give them credit. Like, this is a great way to try to bait some people to make that tow that perhaps otherwise wouldn't, because typically at this point in the season, you're getting guys that are, you know, they spend a lot of money. It's 2 million degrees out. Diesel prices are still high. Parts are hard to get. Like,
it's expensive to go to Brainerd too.
It's expensive to go to Brainerd. Yeah.
Oh, as far as
lodging, hotels, everything, man. It's a real tourist destination. It's relatively remote, so the options are limited. And I mean, from a table at a restaurant to a hotel room, it's slim picking.
JT's on Airbnb right now trying to find.
Well, I was just wondering, do I have to go to the race if I go? I mean,
well, that's the thing, man.
I can just stay in the zoo.
I would say a significant percentage of the people who buy tickets to that race never leave the zoo.
I mean, Wes, can we get that house that you rented in 2006?
We could, man. We could look
around.
Burn it down? No, we left. It got tore up pretty good, but we could go back, man.
I mean, that's what we do at a lot of sporting events. We rent or we buy tickets, and then we just end up sitting in the parking lot.
Right. You never even make it inside.
Tailgating the whole time. Pisses my wife off. Oh my God. Why'd we buy tickets? In case I wanted to go in at some point.
Yeah. What do you do, man? I mean, and I think that we have to recognize that there's no, right? I mean, there's no very few of these drag races are like a great deal. You know what I mean? Like you're going to be, especially at this level, it's tough. You're not making as much as you spent, right? But I think it does help that they're putting this deal together to try to draw some people out there and throw a little bit of money at them. I think everybody that qualifies for the shootout's going to get a check of some sort. So it'll be a good thing, man. I think.
Yep. We need more of this. We need more special shootouts and one-off races. We say that all the time.
We really do. Speaking of, I do want to talk a little bit about the VMP race, right? I mean, obviously we got some concerns about the forecast, but man, every racer that I've ever talked to looks forward to an opportunity to go to Virginia Motorsports Park. Arguably the best, if not one of the best racing surfaces in existence. Don't you think that event is pretty important to see it back on the NHRA schedule, Mike? I mean, that was it just seems like there's been many records set there. It was like my favorite track to go to on the NHRA Championship drag racing video game on PlayStation.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like shut down with all the trees.
Plenty of shutdown. VMP's got more shutdown than maybe any track in America.
When I go to VMP, I can make an argument for the earth being flat. You know what I mean? Like it's long. It's like that might be the end, right down there. You know where that Dooley's parked.
Oh, he's a flat earther now, JT. Oh,
yeah, he's a flat earther.
It's only downhill from here. But no, isn't VMP certified as like the smoothest concrete surface on the earth or something like that?
Well, and then you got Tyler Crossnow out there sleeping on it every night, right?
He does. I think he does.
Petting
my baby.
Every time we talk to Tyler, he's on the tractor.
I think that's what he
PDT,
does.
Well,
Pro Drag Tractor.
He texted earlier and said, if you see a grown man crying this weekend, please no pictures. So he's a little worried.
Man,
Tyler, I don't know, in a past life, he must have pissed somebody off or something because Tyler and the weather
just follows him around.
Are oil and water. One day he'll turn the corner on that deal.
I mean, yeah, he's even pulled snow.
He has. He's even pulled off snow in Memphis, Tennessee. Right? I mean,
in the spring.
In the spring. Tyler's blocked all of us officially.
Yeah, he probably did. But you know what? You got to like tip your cap to each one of these race or track promoters, track owners, because man, I've been there. I mean, I could tell you guys stories about my days in track management back in 2004 or 5.
You have.
I mean, thanks, T. But I mean, like literally laying awake at night, hoping that it would rain. Right? You know what I mean? Like,
oh shit,
man, I hope it rains because that's the best thing that could happen. Because I'm about to take a bath on this deal. I don't know how I'm going to recover from it. I mean, I remember vividly laying in my bed in Oskaloosa, Iowa, many moons ago, looking at the ceiling, going, "Please rain, please rain, please rain," because it was just. You know, some of these deals, it's hard, no matter how hard you work, no matter how much you beat the brush, you're fixing to take an L, you know? And the fact that so many racetrack owners and operators fight that battle every single week. I mean, right down here at Extreme Raceway Park in Ferris, Texas, Clyde Scott, they're open year round, essentially, right? I mean, that place is if it's not snowing, they're open. And to think about how many tracks keep their doors open. I think the most recent count is somewhere around 430 active drag strips. You think about 430 active drag strips, that's 430 track owners, general managers that are fighting that battle or watching the forecast all weekend long, have bet
it's not including the promoters, all the different promoters.
All the promoters that bounce around, the we suitcase promoters that fly in and fly out. I mean, there's a whole ecosystem of these people, and you got to tip your cap to them because it's a rough existence, man.
Speaking of keeping the doors open, we had a comment about Palm Beach. Do we think that Palm Beach International Raceway will stay open? No, I don't think it will. And I want to go back to talking about VMP. It's now serves more of an important purpose with a lot of these tracks up and down the East Coast, Atlanta, Palm Beach. I know those are really not close to Virginia, but here in kind of the mid-Atlantic Southeast, it's an important event. I mean, we really got ZMAX and we got Bristol, and really, you know, Maple Grove, but that's quite a distance from VMP. It serves a pretty important demographic as far as NHRA reaching that audience. And I think that it came along at a time where we didn't think that it was going to, you know, that it was necessary or it was kind of like added on when the schedule was packed. But as these as these track closures happen for one reason or another, I think someone like the Franklin family taking ownership of VMP, refurbishing that place and making it what it is, taking it from something that kind of sat there collecting dust for a few years to like one of the nicest facilities on the tour and one of the nicest tracks on the tour, I think is an important deal.
I agree. And I think I'll use this as a little bit of a segue. And I meant to have a video queued up for this. But we have to find ways. And I think that the NHRA is probably really going to shoulder the brunt of this, is that it's like, how can we find ways to make sure that these tracks would never even consider not having an NHRA national event? Like the story of 2022, if you want to find one that's like a real head scratcher, at least for me, is Houston Raceway Park. I mean, massive media market, incredible part of the country, right? Great weather, typically. I mean, it can get hot for sure, but to think about Houston Raceway Park opting not to have an NHRA national event in 2023, it baffles me. And you can't help
the crowds that they've pulled too. I mean, it's like,
right?
Why?
Right. But to me, it begs the question is the value proposition good enough for the national event level track operator is the juice worth the squeeze? I look back at this past weekend in Miami for the Formula One event, right? Look at the massive success that event was. I mean, it's the talk of the world, right? I mean, I was actually looking, even the TV ratings were stunningly good.
They were crazy high.
You look at this whole thing, and why do you think that event happened? For the city of Miami. They made money, right? Yeah. Like property values going up. It wasn't as much about how many tickets they sold, right? Or whatever. I mean, that was part of it, obviously. But I mean, you got Max Verstappen walking out on stage wearing a Miami Dolphins helmet. Right,
that was kind of like
I know, but that was. What? I mean, how much do you think that added to the value of the Miami Dolphins franchise? I mean, I bet it does, man. You put it in front of a worldwide audience. Well, I mean, it does because they're not delivering on the field. But man, I truly
got your boy Tyreek now. Don't be mad, T.
Yeah,
dude. But I mean, that had to be a big moment for the NFL, right? Like to see. I mean, we see it all talked about all the time.
Helps. High tide lifts all boats, right? And I felt like there's a lot of, when we talk about F1, I see some comments in here like, is this an F1 show or something? But that they're really setting the bar for reinventing themselves, reaching new audiences and new markets, reaching a younger demographic, embracing technology, all these things. And what they're doing will, if we're smart and we grab onto those coattails, will help drag racing. It will help all forms of racing for racing period to get that kind of mainstream national attention is a big deal.
It's so competitive too. I think we talked about this last week, Mike, that it's so competitive that if you go in there, if you get a ride, you got to show all this promise coming up and then you finally get in a ride. But if you don't do your job and you're not driving good, man, they have you replaced in no
There's
time.
Only 20 seats in F1 right. And they have every racer in the world
and someone else in there. So you better, every race you have to prove yourself, I think there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's always going to be one of drag racing's. It all goes back to dollars, right? I mean, if there was opportunities in drag racing for a guy to field a team and make a bunch of money doing it, you'd see a lot more people doing it. I mean, that's why our sport is so dependent on people like Don Schumacher and Connie Coletta who love it. Right? Mike Salinas, all these high level, there are very few of those team owners that are, none of them, very few of them, if any, have made money doing this. They've done it because they love the sport of drag racing. They love being a part of it. They love the community. They love the fans. They want to be here. They're choosing to be here. It's how they choose to spend their money. But man, if you could inject the notion of being able to go drag racing and actually have it be a profitable endeavor, that would introduce a whole new world. And if
hired drivers,
hired gun drivers would be a thing, right? And you'd see guys jockeying for position.
Right? Yeah, even NASCAR, you're working your way into it, and then you have your hired gun drivers. So I don't know. I think that's part of it. I think that I guess the Netflix show has basically propelled F1 onto America.
Yes.
Where we were probably pretty clueless before. I know I was, until I watched the show. And I think that I guess you could probably say that about a lot of people that watch Street Outlaws and No Prep Kings in drag racing, and it's put it on the map for them now.
Right.
So, I mean, they have some things in common.
Oh, 1,000,000%, man. I mean, and I think that there's like lessons to be learned. When I look at Formula One, I look at like, okay, they took the bull by the horns, created this reality show, got it on Netflix, and it worked, right? I mean, I got a piece of PR from Formula One the other day where they were talking about how much their racers, their drivers' social media followings have exploded on the heels of Netflix, The Drive to Survive, the Formula One show. And I see the same thing, but it's like No Prep Kings, we have that same, maybe not the same level, right? But they have that, the No Prep Kings series, Street Outlaws, we have that reality show component, but we don't have it tethered to the highest profile or the most competitive part of our sport, being the NHRA. Right. And that's where I keep asking myself, like, how do we marry those things? How do we create even the slightest connection? Or is the answer more so to create a new series or a new sanction that celebrates, that's focused on no prep style racing?
What season are we on?
Like 5.
On the drive, is it 5?
Well, there's been 4. They just renewed 5 and 6.
Okay. Yeah. And then we're, I don't know how many seasons into Street Outlaws, like what, 10 years or
200,
something?
I think. 200 seasons.
So I mean, you just think about that though, and you see that it's working in both these, hey, how many, I mean, how's this working over here, neighbor, for you? Oh, it's working great, man. Everything's exploding. Hey, look over here on the other side of the fence. Oh, that neighbor's doing awesome too. Well, I'm not going to try that. I mean, that's basically what has happened. How many bushel per acre are you getting across the fence? Oh, I'm getting 100. How much you getting? 100. Well, I'm getting 50, but I'm gonna stay here. I'm not gonna do what you're doing. I mean, that's basically what they have done. Like the map is laid out for them, but they have failed to take advantage of it.
When I look at Formula One, especially like those, they lean on the aerial camera a ton, right? I mean, they're going to helicopter shots all the time, right? And when I look at it, I'm seeing like, and not necessarily just on the helicopter camera, but you're seeing a Ferris wheel, you're seeing like this tent, that tent, a stage, this area, beach, that area, a beach, right? A fake marina, right? I mean, and that's where I feel, and now granted, every single one of those things, expensive. But
people are willing to pay for it, man. We've entered an era where people, it's like YOLO era or something. Like people, they don't care what their money they're making, what the economy's doing, inflation's doing. They're going for a VIP experience, and they want to do something and post it on their social media that not everyone's doing, right? Or that they're an exclusive, they're part of something VIP and exclusive. That is a big thing. We've seen that in sports too. Like they're tearing down our old arenas and stuff that hold 30,000 people, like NBA arenas, to build an 18,000 seat arena, but it has tons of luxury boxes and stuff like that, because they're catering more toward getting more corporations and wealthy people in there for a VIP experience than, Joe down the street that's going to buy nosebleed tickets. And I mean, it sounds bad to say that, but that's kind of where we are with drag racing. We appeal to just, everything's a general admission ticket. There are very few VIP experiences. If there are, they're offered by the track, not the NHRA.
Interesting.
The track has built that facility for
going back to our belief system that everybody wants what no one else has. Have we reached a point where the tip of the spear for drag racing for so long has been every ticket's a pit pass? I wonder if you reach a point where that's no longer a selling point.
Right. It's a detriment.
Where it's a detriment where it's like, no, we got to find a way to make that a special experience. And unfortunately, drag racing has had the walls down for so long, right? The veil's been pulled back for so long that it's just super foreign.
It's definitely a double-edged sword, man.
Right.
But it's the every ticket's a pit pass, and the accessibility is more natural for drag racing because it is such an accessible sport from the lowest levels to the highest, to youngest, age, gender, whatever. It's so much more accessible to so many different people. And if you want it bad enough, and there's a class for you, and you'll find a place to fit in. These other sports, other forms of racing, even, it is like JT was saying, these guys are like bred from birth and trained for, working their way up eventually to F1, and they're trained in that discipline of racing. And I just think that it's a much more natural fit, but I do think it holds us back from reaching that next level.
For sure. I think.
I wonder if there's room for it. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't know. Sometimes you wonder, like, I remember one time having a conversation with Larry Dixon, and it surprised me. I was interviewing Top Fuel superstar, multi-time champ. I think he's won a few championships, right? Larry Dixon won a couple of NHRA Top Fuel titles. He's, sponsored by Miller Lite. I mean, one of the sport's most visible stars, right? And I remember having a conversation with him. We were interviewing him for the cover of the magazine. Seems like it's been 100 years ago. But he said, yeah, it was 100 years ago.
2010.
But he said to me, I asked him, like, do you ever find yourself jealous of, like, the stardom that a Danica Patrick has or a Max Verstappen has? I mean, this is actually a bad reference because I don't remember who I referenced way back when. I think I referenced, like, Jeff Gordon, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Tony Stewart, a bunch of NASCAR big names. And he actually said, nah, man, no, I'm really happy and proud and grateful of where we're at, and our sport's for everybody. And I thought to myself, man, that's not what I expected you to say. Like, I expected him to come at me with, like, some heat about, hell yeah, man, the cars I drive are fast and crazy and dangerous and life-threatening and all these things, and our sport deserves more than it has. But that's the polar opposite of what I got. It was much more, hey, I'm really thankful to have this opportunity to race Top Fuel. And I don't know if it's just where he was at that point in time, but I say all that just to kind of wonder aloud, do we want more for this than it wants for itself? You know what I mean? Like, is everybody content? Because sometimes I feel that way. Or have we all resigned
or maybe they just
like,
say
this
that.
is our station in life.
Maybe he's trying to talk himself into it just as much as telling you. You know, I mean, really.
No, I agree. I mean, it could.
I think
well
everybody's looking for something different when they go to a drag race, either to attend it or to participate in it. And I feel like it's much more funneled, like, into one path. When you go to these other deals, it's like, this is what you're here to do or to see. At a drag race, it's, you make of it what you want. Sit wherever you want, go wherever you want, follow whatever class you want, talk to whatever driver, do whatever. It's definitely much more like open world, I guess you could say, versus going down a predetermined path. But the thing about an open world situation is you can't optimize every path. And if you're going to really focus and pour some resources behind something, you have to create that one path for people to go down so that you maximize that investment. And you just can't spread it out. It's sort of like the shotgun method versus the sniper method.
That was deep. I mean, deep.
Yeah.
But I agree with it wholeheartedly, man. I wonder, and I think these things are fun to talk about because it's not that I want to, like, harp on the F1 thing or harp on tractor pulling or whatever, but I do love an opportunity to learn from the success someone else is having in another walk of life. And it's almost like the answer perhaps would be having the NHRA be this big open world thing where, I mean, we just saw Jeff Shockey in the comments here watching along on YouTube. Thank you very much. Shout out to all of our friends on YouTube. They, that the fact that he can go race on the same drag strip. I mean, you can go to Gainesville, Florida this weekend probably and enter your truck, your daily driver in trophy, right? Or whatever, no box. And you can go race on the same track that Kenny Bernstein went 300 miles an hour for the first time on in the Bud King Top Fuel Dragster. That's an amazing thing. You can go to Rockingham Dragway and race on the same track that Jason Scruggs blistered up and down, right? So I think that accessibility is a huge benefit to our sport. However, we need something. Yeah, but you need to have maybe it's not the NHRA. Maybe what we're identifying is that there's room for a drag racing. I've often thought that there might be room in drag racing for a Monster Jam of sorts that was a little bit more. I mean, Monster Jam is a scripted whatever thing, but a more entertainment focused, more higher profile or whatever entertainment focused event or series, right? That kind of people
like
aspire
self-contained.
to. Yeah, self-contained, controlled
like
cast of characters. Yes. Yeah. Where you knew you're like, hey, we got 10 cars. We're going to qualify 8 of them. We're going to run them off. We're going to have this whole thing done like they do at Big Dog from 15 minutes between rounds. The cars, you know what I mean? Like, I just think that there's room for something like that. Yeah,
Supercross race. They can get it done in a night, and you have like your last chance qualifiers and get your field set. And
I don't know. I find it to be a very fun conversation to have. I really do. And I think, honestly, to kind of close today's show, I'm going to throw this video up here. It's just a little bit of a loop that I'd like to use as sorry, guys. I had the sound on. My bad. But going back to Pro Mod, man, I don't think our sports version of Formula One or our sports version of Monster Jam is going to come in the form of Top Fuel dragsters or funny cars. I think it's going to come in the form of what we're seeing right now in front of us. Pro Mod cars that look like cars that look like Hot Wheels, cars that are driven by those badasses and outlaws that Stan Shelton was referencing in the schoolyard a few minutes ago, right? There is an opportunity here, in my opinion, and I honestly think having this conversation is getting me all fired up wanting to do the World Series of Pro Mod again.
Oh, no. Here we go.
No, but I mean, it really is.
I actually was thinking about it was either yesterday or earlier today. I was like, yeah, we need to do another race.
Yeah, my wife's like, wait a second, you guys aren't doing a race?
As I think about this, I'm thinking that there's got to be the toughest part is the quarter mile versus eighth mile thing. Like some of the variables that exist in our sport cause problems. But if somebody asked me, like, what do you want to do, Wes? And we will stroke a check, it would be the World Series of Pro Mod. A singular event somewhere in the country, not competing with NHRA, not competing with Midwest, not competing with PDRA or NMCA or Northeast Outlaw Pro Mods. Leveraging the fact that there's 150 plus of these things in the United States, in the continent. Well, I mean, here in North America, at least. I think there's probably closer to 200. Matt Plotkin actually commented on the post that I made on Facebook, sharing my article earlier this week, that there's over 180 Pro Mods that he's aware of. You have such a pool to pull from. And if we brought back a World Series of Pro Mod, had it pay crazy money, invite only, hyper exclusive deal, I can't help but feel like that would help all these other events and sanctions and series, right? Because you had that marquee.
How about
thing.
A World Series of no prep?
Well, I already own the domain, and I've thought a lot about it, to be honest. And that it's weird. I think no prep.
Do them both.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. The no prep deal. If there was an opportunity that was remember when they did the Bristol race that paid like $200,000 to win?
Yeah, you're talking about the shootout deal?
Yeah, that shootout.
The Top Fuel versus Funny Car deal?
No. The Street Outlaws. Remember when they did that event at Bristol and it sold the place out?
That was one of the first times. I mean, that was a big deal. Like that was so on our radar. Do you remember that? That was
dude, it was
that was
huge.
Like the start. Was that like kind of the start of NPK?
Yes. And that event, I think back to that format of like a 32 car invitational. Yeah, I think it was $200,000, and they ended up splitting it amongst like the guys, like the last 4 or 8 cars that were left. But
that sucks. No splits. If you want to split, go to Dairy Queen.
That's a Steve Matusik. That's a Steve Matusik
line. That is
line.
ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm not a big splits guy. Not in real life. I don't like banana splits, and I don't like when people split the pot. I mean, you're not going to do it on my watch. If you guys want to do it
out last time I did a split.
Yeah. But seriously though, that event, if you brought that back or did a World Series of no prep, right? And you did it where it was come one, come all, right? Like if Ricky Smith wants to come and run his car, if Stevie Jackson wants to bring a car. Now, granted, it needs to be like no prep Kings rules, I think, would be fairly critical. But I honestly think there may be room for something like that in the sport. Right? We do have to do them both.
I think for sure.
It would be nothing though if you didn't have all the guys. Like you'd have to have Lizzie, you'd have to have Kai, you'd have to have Ryan Martin, you'd have to have a bulk
if you pay enough money, they'll all come.
Yeah,
I think
I agree.
That's what brought him out to that deal.
Yeah,
I think that's why that was such a huge deal. And wasn't it on a weeknight?
Man, I think it was on a weeknight, maybe, or on a Friday night at
something weird. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just think about all the cars that exist in the country right now, and
there's a lot.
Oh man, it's just screaming for a.
Oh, you meant race cars?
Yeah, yeah. There's a bunch of cars, but all the Pro Mod cars in the country right now, and I just feel like if you threw out, the tough part about it is leaving yourself like room to grow. Like that was probably the biggest battle we had with the World Series of Pro Mod is like, where do you go from here? Like $100,000. I don't want to go to 104. You know what I mean? Do you go to 150 is a big bite. You know what I mean?
101.
Yeah, I mean, 101, it worked for Donald Long, right? To one up us by $1,000. But I mean, I do think that if you came out and you did one that was like 50,000 to win, and then the next year you did 100, and then maybe you gave yourself a couple of years to grow it. I don't know, but I definitely think there's room for this, man. There really is.
I'm just stuck watching Pro Mods. And
I am too. I was like,
zoning out.
No, I mean, I think
Tommy
honestly,
Cunningham,
I wanted
shout
to
out Stroud safety.
Yep, Dave Nelson,
Stroud
$250,000. Yep, that's where you need to start it. Yeah, for sure.
At $250,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about lining them up?
Yeah, Anita lining up Tommy there. It was cool to see them make their first ever appearance at a PDRA national event, right? This was a cool moment for them to come out and be a part of that scene, get introduced to a whole new group of racers. That's a great facility. Bowling Green, Beach Bend, that's a perfect spot for a PDRA race, if you ask me, right? I mean, that's just a great
100%.
venue.
Right?
Yeah. Pro Mod, it's another place where Pro Mod looks really, really good. If you guys got to pick where the World Series of Pro Mod would be, where does it go? Because I'm curious.
Let us know in the comments.
Do you go? Yeah, where do you guys want to see the World Series of Pro Mod? If we bring that event back, where do you want to see it? Because
VMP.
Well, part of me wonders. I wonder if you have to go somewhere kind of small. I'm not saying Piedmont, yeah. But I wonder if a guy has to really force himself to go to a smaller facility.
I loved it at Vandermeer, but it was just hard to get cars to come to Vandermeer.
But Vandermeer is the best racetrack in the world.
Yeah. The facility is awesome, and I mean, we had such a great time there.
Ennis, Curtis Thomas says Ennis. That's a good
Orlando getting thrown
option.
out there. Famoso out there on the West Coast.
Man, I think if it's going to be 8th mile, it's got to be an 8th mile track.
I tend to agree, man.
Beating that drum, man.
Bowling Green.
I think Galat is, the thing about Galat is it has some of the feel of a major national event facility, like, a Z-Max or whatever. It's got the beautiful tower and killer aluminum grandstands and whatnot. But it's also 8th mile. It's got badass scoreboards. It's in a Pro Mod centric part of the country.
XRP, Las Vegas.
We're getting all kinds of says Orlando in the month of March.
Well, Orlando
in America.
Orlando works if you run at 8th mile, I think. You know what I mean? Orlando's got that atmosphere. You know what I mean? They've got a strong local fan base. There's a lot of reasons that part of the country works. The thing I also really like about Orlando is that it's a tourist destination, right? There's hotels and restaurants out the wazoo. The airport's easy to get in and out of. Like it's well suited for a race like that for sure.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, hey, I think we're going to wrap it up. It has been a ball per usual. I want to thank everybody for being a part of it. Mike, JT, Dion, thank you guys for being here. Really fun one, man. Stan Shelton, great guest, right? I mean, this has been a fantastic episode. Huge shout out to all of our sponsors: Stroud Safety, Flow Racing, Redline Synthetic Oils, Elite HP. Thank you guys so much from the bottom of our hearts for making this show possible. Remember, help us spread the word, spread the gospel of drag racing. Go out and tell somebody about the show. Send them a link. Shoot it out to them via email. Tag them. Share it. Whatever you got to do. Help us do the Lord's work. Grow and build the sport of drag racing, guys. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. See you next Wednesday. Same time, same channel, 2 p.m. Central Standard. Thanks.
Later, y'all.
What's up, D-Rock? Jags are